Hey, what's up? It's Kit. Time for another video. Today, we answer the question what you should do when you are fishing in very shallow water. And, you know, let's say about a meter to about 10 meters. And especially with the 7 to 35 range, this is very critical because that's pretty much the range that I fish in a lot. Different terrains, of course, will dictate different things that you will do, and this is the video that will discuss that. All right. Now, before we jump into this, let me just thank the sponsor of the series of videos for shore jigging, and that is Barracuda Fishing Equipment. Barracuda is the largest fishing tackle shop in the UAE, and 90% or probably even more of what you see in this channel comes from Barracuda. So if you're wondering where you could buy the same equipment that I'm using, Barracuda would have all of them. So thank you very much, Barracuda Fishing Equipment, for sponsoring the series on shore jigging. All right, so before we dive in, let me just talk quickly about the rod. Okay. Now, shorter rods, especially when you're fishing these types of jigs, shorter rods will have a disadvantage. Okay. And especially with shorter rods paired with slower reels. So, short rods with PG reels, slow retrieve reels, probably a nightmare when it's not that it's impossible, but it's just more difficult and it's more prone to snag because you won't be able to move your jig fast enough and you won't be able to lift it up faster with a slower rod or with a shorter rod. It is possible. Okay, so it's more doable with a faster reel than it is with a slow reel, because you'd be like, reeling in really fast, and it's not gonna be an easy time. All right, now, if you're faced with 1 to 10 meters all around you, obviously there are rocks and a few other things that you encounter that will make your experience not so good. Okay, so we'll break them down, and then after that we'll see how we approach. But that's down the video. The biggest mistakes, though, let's talk about first. Okay, again, shorter rods, slower reels will be at a disadvantage. Okay, now using too much weight. I think a lot of people get excited and then put on a 20-gram jig, cast it out, and guess what? When it is in the deep end, that's perfectly fine. Okay, but towards the closer bit, that's going to be kind of a nightmare, especially when you have like a shorter rod. If you have a 10-footer and a fast reel, you'd be able to pump it and keep it away from the bottom. Okay, all you have to do is actually pop the rod up as high up as you can, 12 o'clock position, and then reel like this, and you'd be able to keep the jig off the bottom. And that's one way of doing it. Okay, obviously another way is to just cast out and then reel and keep the rod tip up. Just reel, and it will swim. All right, but again, you can't work it slow, and sometimes the fish actually want it slower, and that is where using too much weight gives you a disadvantage, because say a 35-gram jig like this will float because it has a flat body, and that's a planing surface. So pop the rod up, it will go like that, swim. You can even jig it, and that's great, and all it will swim, it will catch fish. But a smaller jig with the same profile will actually need less speed for it to get lifted up and stay on the higher part of the water column, just keeping you away from the bottom. It's a very big advantage. So long rods, faster reels, flatter jigs. Okay, now something like this. Okay, so we're talking of profile. Something like this will be faster in its movement and on its drop than something with a flat body like this. And they're both 15 grams. So this will sink faster. This will sink slower. Again, flat surface. Now, when you're working this, you will require less speed on your reel. Still in the upright position, the rod, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock position. Okay? When you're reeling in, that's one thing or one way to work. You don't have to jig or let it sink to the bottom. Cast out, say 1, 2, then start reeling. Okay? And that would make it so that it is in the mid depth. So let's say let it drop about 2 seconds. Say it drops 1 meter per second and you're letting your jig swim 2 meters. Drop the rod tip down, boom, lift it up, and then you're working lower than 2 meters at say 10 o'clock position. Okay, and then you bring it up, boom, boom. So shallow water fishing, rod tip up. That's biggest thing. All right. So using too much weight profile of the jig. So 3 things. Now, if your hooks are too big, it could contribute to snags as well. If you have a small hook on your jig, that's not gonna snag as much because most of the time it's going to be hidden at around the side of the jig when it's swimming. Okay, and it's also important to size it correctly, because if it's not sized correctly and it's too small, then you're not gonna hook the fish. Okay, so something like that is perfect. So if you see there, that's just a tad, just a small part of it is sticking out. If you're sizing it like this, same principle as sizing the hooks with the jigs. So if you size it like that, you'll have like only a small, most of the time at least, you'll have a small bit of the hook protruding, and when the fish bites, that's what grabs the fish. Okay. Snaps, believe it or not, I have snagged because of my snap. It basically kind of lodged itself between the rocks. Obviously, it could happen with just the jig as well, but snaps, for me, they don't help. Okay, so sometimes the snaps themselves snag. The less hardware you put on your jig, the less there is a chance for you to snag on something. It could be weed. Most of the time, it's actually weed. It catches just the tip of the snap catches the weed, and then that's it. Or it could be even just a split ring catching some weed, and then that's it. All right. So the more hardware you put on, the more there is a chance for that hardware to what do you call this? Snag. Wrong profiles. Again, going back to the flatter and thinner your jig, the more hang time. So it gives you more time to escape the bottom. And let's say you cast out, you let it drop on a thinner jig. When you reel in, it takes longer for it to actually plane up. Whereas with flatter jigs, will plane up really fast. Now, there are flat jigs, but they are deep. again, this will stay on the bottom longer. So I much prefer jigs like this that are flat, okay, and they are thin, as you can see there. So it gives you the most hang time. Even if they are fast jigs, they're fast fluttering jigs, so they give you the most hang time with very little input from the reel. Probably the rod, you can move it, or reel in, and then it will swim and dance. All right. Retrieving too slow, again, has to do with the reel speed. The faster you reel, the more you're going to be able to lift the jig up from the bottom faster. Okay. Now, obviously, if you use too many hooks, so like take for example, for this particular jig, if I leave the treble there or put another assist hook, so instead of just one hook potentially snagging the bottom, you'll have more. So if I'm in a, let's say, rocky terrain or whatever, I'll just take the hook off of the back, at the back, okay? Leave just the assist hook, and that minimizes a lot of the snags. It's not going to be snag proof. Even if it's a weedless hook, it will snag because it could be your jig actually lodging in between a crack. And basically that's that. So the object is to keep the jig off the bottom as much as possible. And one of the biggest contributors of keeping the jig off the bottom is with the rod tip up. Now, if you have the rod tip lower, okay, it means your line is pulling the jig at a lower angle. So the jig will actually stay closer to the bottom. So rod tip up, okay? Now, obviously, this is made of lead, and there are others that are not made of lead, okay? Tin is one, and it is lighter. Aluminum is also lighter, okay? Zinc is even lighter. So there are jigs, although they're kind of rare, there are jigs that are made with these materials and they are lighter. Now, there are also jigs. Maria, the brand, had this before. I think Hoagie has something like that, but not in the smaller sizes. But Maria before actually had a hybrid. Okay, so basically they had a plastic encased lure. And it was sort of like a jig, but what it was is that there's a tiny weight and then it was plastic and used for shallow water. That was really good. That was in the early 2000s, and that jig kind of disappeared. I don't even know what the name of the jig is, but I bought some. They were 20, 30 gram sizes, but they were actually lighter. The jig was small. So like take for example, this is a 20-gram jig. It was about the same as this, but it was 10 grams because, or probably lighter because it was just plastic with a small lead inside. So I don't know. There are lures like that. Okay. Now, obviously using the wrong lure, a heavy lure, a bigger lure and stuff, that will make you snag. Again, something like this will not really help. Although this is just, you can see there, it's 10 grams, but it's not going to help you. Okay. Something like this, okay, compared to that. See? So this is stubby, whereas this is actually flatter, wider, and thinner. So again, it will actually move really well. Now, smaller versions of these will work, okay? We're talking of 7 to 35, okay? So remember, but if you can find small versions of these stick baits, very, very good, okay? Because that will work, although it's kind of difficult to find. Also, there's this is Yuzuri, but kind of big, but there are smaller versions of these that you could use. Both of these are floaters. Okay, so this, when you work it, it actually dives down, wiggles, and then goes back up. This, on the other hand, is more of a walk the dog minnow. Okay, uh, Rapala has the Skitter V, one of my favorites. Really good for shallow water and a top-notch bait for the morning and in the afternoon. Very nice, very good zigzag swimming motion. Smaller ones are really good. Now, I have a very good example here. This is exactly what you need to look for. Okay, but this is a sinker. Okay, this is a slow sinking stick bait in a smaller package right here. Okay, and I actually had this made. It's unbranded, but it was made for me. And for 7 to 35, this is exactly what you're looking for. Very, very good. Barracuda does not have this, but they have a few smaller ones that you can get. There are poppers, of course. Small poppers, you could use those. Those would be perfect. Suspending lures. Okay, so this is a hurricane, and this is called the Fatal Attraction Flash. A lot of brands have this sort of thing. Okay, so it's basically a walk the dog, underwater walk the dog minnow, and it is suspending. Okay, Rapala actually has some of these as some same type. Okay, um, I can't seem to find mine. I know they're in boxes somewhere, but something like this. All right, and it's it works really well. All right, now another thing you could use are these spoons, and this is a crocodile type. All right, so actually this size is really good. It's about an ounce or an ounce and a half. Okay, so about 28 30 grams. Okay, so 1 ounce is 28 grams, so 30 gram, something like this, even smaller, would be really, really good. Obviously, spoons, heavy spoons like these can cast a long way. They flutter on the way down, and all you have to do is really reel in. And what you need to do is find the right speed for this guy to really work. And once it works, you'll know, because your rod tip will just go whoop, 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 whoop. If that rod tip doesn't vibrate the usual vibration, reel in the slack as much as you could and set the hook, because that's how it feels when the fish bites. And this is probably one of my very favorite shallow water lures. And I never leave home without a few of these, because you guess what? I lose them a lot. Not from snags, but from fish, because fish like barracuda and narrowbarred Spanish mackerel love these things. These things cast a mile, and as soon as it drops, you can feel the action. And again, most of the time, I like fishing this more than jigs, especially when I'm in shallow water. It takes a lot of the headache away. All right. So again, crocodile, lure Jensen, crocodile. There are spoons, of course, that are a bit wider, and the wider the spoon is, the more it will have a flutter, but it will be more sluggish. That's why I kind of like this. All right. Now, a cast master is also really good, and there are smaller sizes, especially exceptionally good. Again, follow these guidelines, especially with the hook sizes and everything when you're fishing this. A tip, actually a massive tip that you could use with these: you can put an assist hook on this at the back, a single assist hook, and it's really, really good. Now, another thing that you could do with the assist hook, of course, is to dress it up with feathers or a little bit of flash. Don't go overboard, But what happens is that if you make it long enough, it prevents the spoon from spinning, and you'd be able to fish it with a higher cadence, and it will really dance and not twist. So that is something that you should actually look into. A double assist hook is great for offshore fishing, especially when you're targeting fish like Dorado and stuff. I've used them and they work really, really well, especially the PTFE assist hooks. Alrighty. So that is it for this video. If you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments section. If you think I forgot something, just add more tips on the bottom so that people are looking for this sort of thing actually get the answers that they need. Alrighty, it's this is kind of more of a housekeeping video than anything else. Alrighty, so if you've learned something, give it a thumbs up. All right, if you think that your friend would benefit from this video, share the video. Okay, and if you haven't yet and you want to learn more, click on that subscribe button. Of course, thank you very much for the support. And if you want to support us more, support this channel going forward, you can click on the membership button. And for those that have done that already, thank you very much for the support. And also, again, thank you for sponsoring the series Barracuda Fishing Equipment and their friends over at Barracuda. Thank you very much, and I'll see you guys soon. Alrighty, that's it for this video. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Class dismissed.